Welcome back to the Stephen Knight Show. Our guest tonight is a distinguished home appraisal expert, real estate investor, professional speaker, and author with nearly 20 years of experience in real estate industry. He joined us tonight to tell us all about it and much more. Please help me welcome Marcus Hill. Welcome to the show.
What up, man? I'm so
Yeah,
excited to be here. Thank you again for the opportunity to come share. Love sharing this appraisal real estate stuff.
yeah. Well, listen, you started your own real estate and appraisal company at such a young age. What inspired you to do that? And why were you even thinking that way at a young age?
You know, I didn't really think that I was going to be uh, appraiser, you know. So for me, went to college. My first goal, I set to myself to graduate, right? And so, I thought I wanted to go to law school. So I was like, I was gung ho about, moving back to Little Rock, Arkansas, going to the law school there. But
Yeah.
a family friend um, saw him, doing that summer. He's like, "What you gonna be doing? When you move back home?" It's like, "I'm going to
Right.
law school." And he's like, "Okay. You want to come work for me for the summer?" I was like, "Cool. What you doing? You gonna pay me? Like,
Right.
what's going on?" And so he's like, "Yeah." And so he was an appraiser. And so, once I started understanding like the appraisal part of real estate, learning the real estate by way of just things into like they do kind of trips over me. And I started learning how to measure a property, how to write up a property description, how to pull comps in neighborhoods, and understanding how important your appraisal tool is because lenders are making totally decisions on your balance. Right? And then I'll just say this in Little Rock, Arkansas, I didn't really see anybody young like you.
Yeah.
My race, my age, down to um, the training, when principal was in the training, you got to just and so a lot of these students that then were exchange crazy. So I'm, still I need to do take my course here and there, but I don't see anybody young like this. I didn't see nobody that looked like me. And so I
Right.
was like, you know what? I'm gonna be the youngest American. Just because I thought there were nobody looked like.
Opportunity. Yeah. Yeah. What were some of the challenges you had when you first started out?
Well, I was a 24, 25-year old, uh, you know, not too many of those are just in the business mindset, right?
Right.
So for me, I just found something I was so passionate about, which that made me want to learn the business of it.
Hmm.
And so, of course, learning uh, taxes, marketing, things that you need to run a successful business. I mean, that was a little like learning curve for me
Oh
because,
yeah.
I'm fresh out of college. We still trying to find ourselves. What we gonna do, how we live in. And so, I had to grow up very quickly
Hmm.
because of just the nature of the business. Because okay, imagine the average age of appraiser in America is 60 years old.
Oh wow.
Okay, so 20 years ago when I started, so that's the average age today. 20 years
Okay.
when I started in 2005, that was the average age. So then, and so just imagine,
It hadn't changed yet.
it hasn't changed much. But back then, just imagine, you're not the typical person that does this particular content. And so,
Right.
a lot of responsibility comes with that. I didn't really have a life because I didn't want to be the young person messing up.
Right.
I want to make
Exactly.
sure,
Pressure.
yeah, I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. I'm handling my business. I'm representing my company. Like it was a lot. But what was even crazier and a bigger challenge was I lost my company during the 2008 housing recession.
Oh wow.
I was 26 years old
Wow.
during the 2008 housing recession,
Yes. Wow.
running an appraisal company. Where, and so, it was a lot there, because you're having to not navigate a market shift, right?
Right.
And then it's a lot of turmoil going on. People are losing their jobs. The government is foreclosing on people because they
People losing
back
their
the
homes.
loans, right?
Exactly.
And so, understanding the market then gave me a sense of responsibility. Like, hey, I need to really be on point here because, hey, I decided to launch this business, which is primarily a public business because, in America, you got to get an appraisal before you close on a house.
Right, right. So what strategies did you use to establish credibility and that trust from the trust is huge, what I mean, especially being young, being an African American male. How did you establish that credibility?
In the field, when you're not the typical age of an appraiser, there's always lots of questions.
Right.
And so
They're
I'll
like,
just
what,
say
what do
each
you know?
exactly, right? And so I would say each assignment, I would literally take time out to answer their questions.
Mhm.
A lot of people would ask questions, hey, if I do these upgrades, do you think they will really impact my value? Or, what not how to not overdo it when repairs, like just little simple stuff like that to give
But
to
you don't
some
always know.
is
Yeah.
everything. And then I've also I was hosting home buyer workshops. Not only did I start an appraisal company at 26, I even got into mortgage loans. I was a loan originator while I was running an appraisal company. While
Wow.
I was flipping houses, while I was owning properties as a landlord. And so I just kind of bit the real estate bug. And
Yeah.
but I think when you can bring value by way of education, that's the biggest thing. It's people need to encourage them to start it. Like, hey, who's doing this? Don't you going on to it? Hey, let's see all these
Mhm.
people because he's so good as an appraiser too.
Right.
It's like it's just being open and sometimes you don't always have to do everything for money.
Right.
You gotta give by the kindness of your heart. And
Mhm.
so I did that as a young age because I knew it was a sense of responsibility to impact my community.
Right. And a reputation, I can imagine, that word of mouth, that, reputation, I'm sure that was important to you as well, or important to your clients.
Oh yes, absolutely. Because you know, this appraisal report comes blank. You got to know every single thing
Yeah.
report, and people are making, lenders are making decisions off of your number. So if you're
Right.
not doing the right thing, you can wind yourself up, in some places you don't want to be in, like in the
Right.
courts, you know.
Right.
So it's very pivotal to you to really know your craft, and
Right.
be able to explain yourself in any situation.
So when you see your company today as opposed to 20 years ago, what do you think, like when you look back at where you began and where you are today?
Man, my journey was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You know, um, it wasn't until 2019 that I saw some appraisal statistics. There was a
Mhm.
study done by the Appraisal Institute. It was a 2019 valuation study that showed 1.9% African American in a 2019 study. And I got into the field in 2005, right?
Right.
So just
Right.
imagine what
Yeah.
what that was, and then it showed the average age was 50 to 65, and then it showed less than 1% were under the age of 25, and I was 24 when I got started. And I was just
Hmm.
like, once I got that study, man, it dawned on me for a minute. I was just
Right.
like, I didn't even realize what I had embarked on. And so 20 years later, it's been a crazy thing to just reflect because not only did I run my appraisal company during the 2008 housing recession, I got recruited by Fannie Mae in 2012. I
Wow.
got recruited in a valuation department where I have been one of the few people in America that value a residential property in every state. And
Mm.
so uh, I just have had like a crazy journey, which made me author a book. And so it's been
Yeah.
so really cool to do, you know, reflecting 20 years this year, like doing book signings, doing speaking engagements, just kind of sharing my journey from way back when that just went by so fast.
Right. Blink is over. I mean, it goes by so fast. Let's talk about the book, Assessing My Value. Tell us about the title. Why I like that, Assessing My Value.
I wanted to make a wordplay off appraisal,
Mhm.
but then, I come from very humble beginnings,
Yeah.
and there were some times in my youth that I could have went down some not so positive routes. And so it just reminded me that way, way back then, I was assessing my value. I wanted to flow into a situation where I could be successful. I could be able to do things one day or change my situation. And I think when you kind of look at your individual self, you got to know your value. You got to know your worth. And so assessing my value just was it was just it because I truly did that. I
Right.
recognized something that was needed, and I then took the steps to run a successful company. And not only that, get recruited by the nation's largest mortgage
Yeah.
giant in
Right.
America. And so while I was in this meeting when I was working for Fannie Mae, that was the first time that I saw statistics of appraisers, and that made me want to write a book and just share my journey for others to see.
And in the book, you blend your personal and professional life. Was it hard being transparent? Was there some stories you left out, or some stories you said, I don't want to tell this one? What was your process?
Well, I just wanted to be truly authentic
Yeah.
because I did realize that there were not many young people in the field and not many diverse people in the field. And
Right.
so
Right.
I think it was so important for me to just be transparent on my journey and just give it to you,
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
you every aspect of my journey so you can understand how important real estate is, understanding the appraisal field as a career, but not only that is understanding you can't buy a house without an appraisal. So
Right.
you as a consumer needs to know something about this report to
Hmm.
educate yourself, and so I put so much in this book to like take you down my journey. I mean, it's like a roller coaster because things happen that cause and effect of things,
Right.
and just the knowledge base of what appraisers know, it
Hmm.
is game changing because
Yeah.
um, the appraiser puts the value on everything you see: land, multifamily, businesses, everything, hospitals,
Yeah.
airports, everything
Hmm.
is a value. But I
Right.
think the vast majority of people that go into home ownership or buying any kind of investment properties or stuff like that don't think about real estate from the value standpoint. And so in this book, I really give you a lot of information of how you can use appraisal education to make
Yeah.
sound investments.
Absolutely. So once you completed it and once it was finally released, was it like your child was out there? Was like almost birth?
Let me tell you this, fam. Uh, I I really wasn't in the media or had a lot of articles and magazines,
Right.
but when I stepped out, man, I literally
The
stepped into
floodgates.
a space where, okay, you know,
Right. Right.
and now people are finding out about your journey. The state of Arkansas, man, I was on the front page of the newspaper there. They did a whole write-up bio
Wow.
of like the journey from church
Yeah.
to being young and to, running my business to Fannie
Right.
Mae, man, that in itself was a little like nerve-wracking because that was like the first big thing I was in. But now, I
Mhm.
mean, I've been in multiple magazines now,
Yeah.
and you know, I I look at it as yes, it's personable, right? Like you're learning about an individual in their
Right.
journey, but I feel like it's gonna help impact things. And so that's why I look at it now. It's like, okay, that's fine. I know this is gonna help. So let me just
Now yeah.
do it all,
To it, surrender to it, right? Well, you've been speaking around the country. Tell us about the audience, how you've been connecting with them, what's been the reaction? Tell us about that.
Man, it's been a beautiful thing. I've been to over 25 cities around the US,
Wow.
either by way of speaking or doing book signings. And what's really cool is to go into spaces where you don't expect somebody that looks like me to know so much about
Yeah.
appraisals, and so it's like a shocker,
All right.
and but I literally found my passion, and so um, it's been really cool, man. I'll just share this week. I'm headed to St. Louis to speak to people, the community that was affected by the tornado,
Oh
and I'm
wow.
going to help them understand kind of how to determine kind of what they have right now, how to come up with the value of that, and then
Mhm.
how to understand, okay, if you want to rebuild, let's look at the as repaired value and see how much the property could be worth if you go ahead and go with these repairs. And so it's just kind of using the appraisal education to just help in different areas and make impact. The average person that buys a house has no idea about the appraisal. They just have to pay for one.
Right.
And so it's just so good to come into organizations or communities and break it down for you. Here's the top
Yeah.
things you need to know reading the report because you're
Right.
going to pay for this. And all you're going to do is look at the value, throw it in some email. But no, let me show you
What this
what you need to
means.
look for,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
how you can use this. The
Yeah.
biggest thing is um, I love talking to new investors because I show them how to make an educated
Mm.
um, synopsis of like a property investment by way of
Yeah.
using appraisal education, understanding the as repaired value. Because if you
Mm.
know how much you can sell it for once you rehab it, then you can know what's the good price to pay for it. And so,
Yeah.
just sharing that
So much.
aspect is like golden. So it's been really really cool to kind of take down the appraisal field and just kind of impact communities.
Yeah, and I can imagine it's been rewarding just going from the 25 countries and teaching people about it. Because again, I remember when I bought my home, like you said, paid for it and sent it off. It wasn't like a thing. I didn't know what I was looking at.
Yeah, yeah, and the vast majority of the public does not. And so this is why I put certain things in my book to kind of
Yeah.
educate you, kind of just give you my perspective. So when you go through the home buying process again as a regular homeowner or an investor,
Mhm.
I learned something in Marcus's book about this,
Right.
this, and that, And so this is why I did that because the appraiser plays the important role in every transaction
Hmm.
that's federally regulated. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so it's just very important.
Yeah. So you look back at everything, the growth of your businesses, writing a book, and now publicly speaking and sharing all the knowledge that you have. What do you think when you look back? I mean, because I know I recently had to do something where I had to go back to review my career from high school, which I was like, wow. And I know we don't always look back that far. We're just going through life, going for the next step. But when you look back at all that you've accomplished thus far, what do you think? And what is it? How does that make you feel?
Well, here's the thing. In my book, the last chapter is called A Letter to My Younger Self.
Oh
And
wow.
so I reflect back, through the tough times, through the times where, I felt afraid, I felt scared. I was in not the best part of town. Some people have heard of Banging in Little Rock on HBO back in the 90s. It was
Yeah.
a documentary. And people saw that on TV, but I was actually living it every day as a youth. And so,
Wow.
I look back on just the positive moves that I made to keep
Hmm.
myself on a good track. I think
Yeah.
about, my family, my mom always had me in church, just gaining a really spiritual background helped me so much, and then just people supported me. We all get to places by other people. And so in that chapter, I really reflect on a lot of things and just, you know, a lot of opportunities that I had to not do the right thing,
Mhm.
and I see why.
Yeah.
I see why
Yeah.
today. I remind my younger self to continue to go down the right path because now we get to travel around the country and share about something that you did that most people may not do,
Not to.
and so
Exactly. Exactly.
and
Yeah.
so it's a joy, honestly, to look back 20 years later, and be like, yeah, this is why I did this.
Hmm.
This is why I stayed down this path. This is why I
Yeah.
chose the right way and not the wrong way because of how things could impact you
Absolutely.
later on.
Cause and effect.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
what advice would you give if a young entrepreneur now, wanted to maybe came from the same type of environment, maybe didn't? What advice would you give them to persevere and to move forward and to do their best to be successful? What advice would you give?
So I'll give a few things. First, I would stay prayed up. You gotta, in my opinion, I feel like there's a higher power that runs
Mhm.
everything. And so
Yeah.
you got to stay in good graces with that
Mhm.
at first, and
Right.
so I also would say, find something that you really, really love to do. As
Yeah.
hard, the appraisal field is the hardest part of the real estate game. Like it's the most education, the most
Mhm.
experience that you got to require to get. And it's really tough,
Yeah.
but as a young kid for me, it's like I found what I love to do. Like the
Mhm.
different things of that you make an appraisal is like I just really, really enjoyed that. So I didn't really look at it as any kind of hindrance or thing that I just didn't want to do. I would just say find your passion, like allow yourself to find what you love to do. And then before you pull the trigger, because we get trigger happy, when we about to launch out there, right?
You're
Before you
excited.
pull yeah, before you pull the trigger, make sure you know about taxes, make sure you know about marketing, make sure you know about running a business day to day. Get really good at those things.
Yeah.
Then launch.
Yeah.
And so you can now feel comfortable about your decision.
Mhm.
Um, I was just so passionate just way back when, like I was just like, okay, it's time now. I got my license. I know this field upside, inside out. Like I can do this, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But you know, it doesn't always happen like that.
Right.
We got to prepare ourselves, prepare for war in the time of peace.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, what is next for you? I know you said you had the speaking engagement coming up. What else do you have coming out of the pipeline?
Oh man, more speaking opportunities this year. I'm literally hosting my first conference this year in Fort Worth,
Nice.
Texas. And I'm actually doing it with a real estate attorney. And so we're going to now be helping people understand, how to keep the wealth in the family from a legal aspect and then
Mhm.
a real estate aspect, because you
Yeah.
never really get both, right?
Right.
So I'm so excited to be launching that and kind of sharing in that way because oh wow, the appraisal can really help you make some sound decisions when you get inherited
Absolutely.
property, right? And so a lot of conferences that we plan on hosting. And honestly, we have a plan to reach over 1 million families. And
Wow.
so
Wow.
um, with that, also just helping increase more people into the appraisal field. I love going to places, colleges, churches, different places, just kind of introducing the field of how you get licensed in your state. And
Yeah.
so definitely going to be rolling out things to for opportunities for people to connect in that way too. But just making an impact, man. God has blessed me so much. I just feel
Mhm.
like I need to live in purpose and just give
Yeah.
out my information.
I like that. I like that. And ultimately, how do you want your legacy? I know you're young, still young, but how do you want your legacy to be defined as it relates to all this?
You know, when I look at legacy, I look at what comes after, right? And
Mhm.
so I just hope people they find out about me like, hey, that guy right there, he didn't
Right.
he didn't gatekeep. He was out there sharing. He was out there impacting people, and he is the type of person that want to see people succeed, but do it by way of education first. And so, when it's all said and done, I hope my journey story impacts people and helping people understand how to buy your first house or just things of around investments. Just the appraisal touches so many different parts. I
Right.
just hope that I have did my best by putting the information out there for people, and really making some more impact. I've mentored others in the appraisal field now, and so it's great to
Yeah.
see them flourish and yeah, man, and honestly, just living in purpose.
Yeah.
Being able to be of service every day.
Well, the book's called Assessing My Value. Where can everyone keep up with you, follow you? What's the best way? Tell us everything.
Sure, sure. So you can find the book on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, Barnes and Noble. And also you can tap in with me at Ask Marcus Hill on Instagram, on Marcus Hill on Facebook, Marcus Hill on LinkedIn. Um, you know, um, and yeah, feel free to put my name in Google, Marcus Hill Appraiser, and see all the great things that I've been doing, all the events. And I'm just here to impact. So I invite anyone to connect with me because I would love to show you some sauce, at the end of the day.
Definitely. Well, listen, our thanks go out to Marcus Hill for joining us tonight. There will be a link in the bio of this video where you can find out everything about him, all the information, and we'll be right back after this.